and tweet us.
BFM 89.9, the business station.
It is 6:37. You're listening to Inside Story with Sharmilla, and today we are talking about Malaysia's ranking in the World Competitiveness Rankings. We are number 32 out of 63 countries. So earlier we heard about what this means for us, what we could be doing better. But now we're going to look at this from a regional perspective and look at how some of our nearby countries have done and what lessons we could be learning from that. We would like to hear from you. How can Malaysia's economy become more competitive? You can call 77332900, WhatsApp 018-789-8899, tweet us at BFM Radio. Joining us now on the line is Carmelo Ferlito, CEO at the Centre for Market Education. Carmelo, always good to have you with us.
Good evening.
So firstly, how important are rankings like these in encouraging FDI and business into the country?
Well, I think they are important as far as the message that they want to launch reach out to the business community, which is not often the case, if I have to be honest. And so we don't have to overestimate their importance. So they play a role in shaping a mood. But I would say that investors looking at investing at an investment destination, they tend to look more at hard things, so like the conditions of the labor market, the presence of infrastructures, the command of English, so things that are more easily perceivable by an investor that enter a country. And often these indexes also reflect the biases or the values that are incorporated into the organization that produce these indexes. In example, if you look at the specific case that we are analyzing, one of the factors that is weighed in is values and attitudes of the business environment, which is something that in order to be measured requires a lot of assumptions and qualitative evaluation that I think probably business people don't look into too much.
Now, on an anecdotal level at least, how has Malaysia been doing in terms of attracting FDI and business compared to our neighbours over the last decade?
I think that Malaysia has been on, let's say, on a growing trend up to probably 6-7 years ago, has been one of the dominant countries in the region. But then again, also these indexes, of course, the fact that the country goes down doesn't mean necessarily that the country is performing worst, but it may be the cases that the neighbor countries of our countries are performing better, are growing more, so are gaining competitiveness. And in this sense, I think that regionally speaking, Indonesia and Vietnam have really grown a lot in the past decade, and they are gaining fast positions.
So if we do look at the top performers in Asia Pacific, this includes China, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. What are some of the common factors that can be gleaned from their approach to this notion of economic competitiveness?
I think that probably if we reanalyze this index in some time, probably these countries will not perform that well. And in relative terms, they have grown because they have been open to foreign investors with favorable regulations, both in terms of hiring foreign talents and also facilitating foreign businesses to enter the country with a general favorable framework. But they have not been alien from a regional phenomenon that has been perceiving the foreigners as a threat that has emerged since the beginning of the pandemic. So in China, China is doing whatever it takes to kick out foreigners. They are even closing down English-speaking schools because they don't want the local population to have access to foreign media. So I guess that if we look probably with a different perspective, China will not perform that well very soon.
So, speaking of China, while it has done well overall, it did slip one place in the rankings. And the institute behind the rankings has suggested that China should look into restructuring their economy from manufacturing towards high value services and from investment to consumption. What effect would a shift like this have, not just on China's economy, but other countries in the value chain?
Well, again, I think that this kind of judgment reflects the biases or the values that the people doing the index have, because personally, in example, I don't value as positive a shift from investment to consumption, because an economy that is unbalanced toward consumption is an economy that is eating value rather than creating value. The creation of value happens at the investment moment. Consumption is where that value has been eaten. So if all the countries around the world grows in consumption and decline in investment, all of a sudden we will have nothing left to eat. So I guess that someone still needs to keep on investing and to keep on manufacturing. So if, however, as I believe China will shift more toward the domestic consumption and being less the manufacturing place of the world, there is an occasion for Southeast Asia to gain position in that segment of the world supply chain.
We're discussing the World Competitiveness Ranking and specifically looking at the other countries in the region that have ranked on the list and what we can learn from that. We would like to hear from you. How can Malaysia's economy become more competitive? You can call 77332900, WhatsApp 018-789-8899, tweet us at BFM Radio. We'll continue our conversation with Carmelo Ferlito from the Centre for Market Education after this. So keep it here on Inside Story, BFM 89.9.
Bodacious, fabulous minds. BFM 89.9, the business station.
It is 6:45. You're listening to Inside Story with Sharmilla, and we're discussing the World Competitiveness Rankings. Malaysia ranked 32 out of 63 nations. And so now we're looking at what we can learn from the other countries in the region and their place on the list. We are continuing our conversation with Carmelo Ferlito, CEO at the Centre for Market Education. But do keep those thoughts coming. How can Malaysia's economy become more competitive? You can call 77332900, WhatsApp 018-789-8899, tweet us at BFM Radio. Carmelo, if we look at the rankings, one of the biggest jumpers is India, which rose 6 places after a 4-year stall. And experts are actually pointing to its economic performance as well as business efficiency. Could you expand on this? And are there lessons here that Malaysia could adapt and implement?
I think that if we look also at the document that accompanied the ranking, the media statement, what has kept behind most of the countries in Southeast Asia has been the poor hard economic performance that has been due to the prolonged lockdowns that have been affecting this region. So this country opened very late, the last in the world, and in comparative terms, India instead has been more liberal, let's say, in terms of keeping its economy going. It is a huge country, so which presents also potentially a higher degree of domestic consumption. So is a producer of a lot of important commodities, and this has been accompanied by some reforms that have tried to modernize let's say the legal framework of the country, the bureaucratic structure of the country. So in this sense, one is not India performing better because a higher degree of economic opening, while the other countries were remaining closed, and the other has been the attempt to introduce some structural reforms.
So, I mean, exactly that, right? Countries like Thailand and Indonesia have dropped in the rankings, which the study specifically says is a slower reopening of the economy, which is, of course, pretty similar to our approach. Now, how can these so-called more cautious countries step up their game now?
Well, I think that they have stopped to be cautious, first of all, and that's probably what we really needed to move on from there. And now it will take time to regain what has been lost. Supply chains are heavily damaged around the world, and manufacturers from around the world are decreasing their sourcing in the region because it has become too complicated to get products from the region. So we need absolutely to accelerate our project, our prospects of production. So to do whatever it takes for accelerating on the hard economy, I would say, with incentives and maybe with some fiscal reform in terms of diminishing taxation, in example, and try to speed up on free trade. I think that there is an agenda of free trade that has been, but real free trade. I mean, I don't necessarily mean with these the huge trans-Pacific agreements, which look to me everything but free trade, but more direct free trade. Free trade, in a nutshell, means I can trade with you, you can trade with me, and nobody's paying anything for this trade. So that's simple as that. A real free trade agreement is made of very few lines. Doesn't need to be a 1,000-page document. So I think that we need to push in that direction if we want to regain a place in the world economy.
When it comes to rankings or lists like these, we almost always see the Northern European or the Nordic countries claiming the top spots. Is it actually productive for a country like Malaysia to be looking at these as a benchmark when our specific realities are actually so different?
Well, indeed, I think that we have to avoid comparisons that are too far away in also geographically and culturally. And one of the factors, in example, if I look at this specific index that is weighing in favor of Denmark, is the issue of the so-called sustainability. But this, again, for me, requires a lot of subjective evaluations. What does actually mean sustainability? And if sustainability is something that needs to be taken into account to judge competitiveness, then what does really mean to be competitive? And in this, I think that there may be different ideological frameworks at play. And in this specific case, they weigh sustainability, that has been one of the flags for Denmark, and so this has put Denmark up there. But then I think that from a pure economic perspective, judging sustainability as necessarily a driver for competitiveness requires a change in the definition of competitiveness.
On that note, then, are smaller countries or economies inevitably disadvantaged when we talk about competitiveness?
No, I don't think so. And if you look, Denmark is indeed a small country. And the second place we find Switzerland, which is also a small country. Among Asian countries, one of the top scorers is Singapore, which is a small country. So I would say that small countries can indeed be facilitated in stepping up because they are relatively more easy to manage, and having less needs in terms of political management. They may have a more aggressive policy in terms of attractiveness for businesses. So I would say that a small dimension for a country can be an advantage, but everything goes down to the framework in which that you are developing for your country. Legal framework, perception of the political environment, and hard things like infrastructures.
What would you like to leave us with, Carmelo?
That we are not lost for good, that Malaysia has played a very important role in being an attractive hub in the region. So if we want to get back the lost places, we need to rediscover the reasons that made Malaysia great in the past. And on top of them, there was openness toward the foreign world, toward what is not Malaysia, and we need to rediscover that.
Carmelo, thanks for speaking with us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
That was Carmelo Ferlito, CEO at the Center for Market Education, helping us make sense of the world competitiveness rankings, particularly from a regional perspective. Let us know, how can Malaysia's economy become more competitive? You can call 77332900, WhatsApp 018-789-8899, tweet us at BFM Radio. We do have some messages. Let's see. We have, and a number of people have echoed this. Jessica says, remove all corruption and deadwood in the government services. And yes, I agree. I think alongside looking at actual hard economic factors, I think that's one of the challenges that we've been facing for quite some time. We have Kwan saying Malaysia's economic competitiveness will become worse when we are sending skilled foreign workers back and replacing them with unskilled workers. I think our guest earlier, Bangi MP Ong Kian Meng, did refer to our I suppose our reliance on foreign workers and how we really need to get a handle on the situation, right? Like this has been a challenge for us the last 2 years. And if we don't regain or rather work out, on the one hand, how to resolve the over-reliance, but on the other hand, how we can treat them better and give them a fair environment in which to do the very important work that they do. Do keep those thoughts coming. If you'd like to weigh in on how can Malaysia's economy become more competitive, you can call 77332900, WhatsApp 018-789-8899, tweet us at BFM Radio, BFM 89.9.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To find more great interviews, go to bfm.my, BFM 89.9, the business station.